Welcome back to the LTGuitarist Interviews podcast. My name is Liam. I interview people sometimes, and actually this is a special episode because it's brand new. When I first started working on the LTGuitarist Interviews podcast, it was me looking back through interviews I'd done 5-6 years ago, editing them, giving them a bit of polish and reformatting them so they work as modern podcasts. And in doing that, I realized actually I really miss doing this kind of conversational music journalism thing. So I started thinking about my current network of creative people in 2025, and I realized there's loads of people with loads of really interesting stories. So I've reached out to a few of them, and we have some brand new interviews for you. Today, I'm talking to Chris Adshead. I've been working with Chris for 3 or so years on the musical Sad Little Island. And if you've listened to the Conversation Hat podcast, if you're listening to this, there's a good chance you listen to Conversation Hat as well. Me and Ben have spoken about Sad Little Island in the past. Well, Chris is the guy that came up with the idea, and he's had a really interesting career in musical theatre back in the day, playing bass in pit bands. So this interview, we cover all of that, his career in musical theatre, how did he get into his career in musical theatre, and how did he go from playing in pit bands to writing a musical that is premiering in January, which is actually really soon. So I need to get back to work on it. If you want to know more about Sad Little Island, you can find Sad Little Island on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, all the places. If I can work out how to do the YouTube version of this podcast as a collaboration with the Sad Little Island channel, I will do that. And if I haven't done that, I couldn't work it out. Please enjoy this conversation with Chris, creator of Sad Little Island. When did you first start playing music, Chris?
Oh, that's like centuries ago.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what? It's funny because I was at primary school.
Okay.
In a place called Tendring in Essex, and I absolutely, honestly hated my teacher. So he was a bully and a horrible individual. And a peripatetic music teacher came round and said, "Does anyone want to do music lessons, like learn an instrument?" And I wasn't that keen until I found out it was during lesson time.
Lovely, okay.
So yeah. I thought, yeah, I'll have a bit of that. The first thing they gave me was a cello, but for my age, my hands were big, and I wasn't particularly good. They put me on this 3/4 size double bass instead.
Which is the same size as a cello.
Well, it's a bit bigger, but yeah. So okay. So it was all good. And then there was 2 other lads who were mates of mine who did it, and they ironically were much better than me at it. So then it became a bit of a competitive thing.
Right.
So that's how it all started, really.
So you didn't start on bass, you started on cello.
Well,
for some
very
reason.
briefly cello, and then went
very
quite
briefly
quickly
cello.
into bass, yeah.
There's a weird thing with kids where you always try to start them on really hellish instruments like a violin. And an 8-year-old playing a violin is a horrible sound. Just give them a Casio keyboard, much cheaper. How do you transition onto bass guitar?
This competitive sort of double bass scratching that we did was it carried on into the first year of secondary school. But when we went into the music room in secondary school, there was an old dusty bass guitar case, and we opened it. There was this bass guitar. I think it had 3 strings by memory, but my mate Daryl King picked it up, and we started messing about with it. And he was really suddenly, just straight away, really good. He was a great, even in those early days, he was a really good bass player, and I couldn't bear that, so I had to practice really hard to keep up with him. But we would go down and like sort of do stuff on the bass guitar. So at the same time, my dad was always a bit musical, and well, very musical, but not in this sort of sense. He was a church organist and a not bad keyboard player. And he, when he sort of got wind of this, I used to sit with him and do some bits and pieces at home and just play along to whatever he was doing on occasion. And then he was putting together at his school, he taught out a version of Jesus Christ Superstar. And as he was rehearsing the piano bits at home, I'd play along with it, and that's when I first fell in love with that show. But but we progressed from there, really.
Were there any specific bands or groups were you into, or was it just playing along to your dad, playing the sort of, I assume, kind of hymnal sort of stuff?
Yeah, it was a bit of both, because it was that, but he always wanted to run a dance band. So he'd started to get some books of waltzes, quick steps and stuff, which he was going to sort of start to write out as dance band stuff. So I got into that, and then got the hold of the records of the sort of stuff that he was listening to, and like got into big band and stuff. And then at the same time, we were getting into just becoming teenagers, and so I was listening to what everybody else was listening as teenagers, and then working out the bass lines to that and doing that as well. So I was kind of quite early on became quite eclectic in my holistic in my view of music. It was good.
And how are you working stuff out? Just purely through ear and playing notes until it sounded right?
On stuff that I was trying to work out, yeah, and I was quite good at doing that. But on the other side was, of course, having learned very young from a peripatetic music teacher, you're learning reading music, scales, arpeggios. So, because at the same time in tandem, the idea of learning the double bass at primary school was that there was a thing called the Essex School Strings Orchestra, which was a feeder into the Essex Youth Orchestra. And their idea is, if you're doing any sort of level of good at it, that they sort of try and get you through the associated board grades and then get you into the orchestra. So I'd by that time, I'd gone through Essex schools, and I was into the second, they in those days, there was money to do it. They had two different orchestras, and I was in the second Essex Youth Orchestra. And so I was playing classically as well. So it was on double bass, so I was immersed in music.
The bulk of our conversation is going to be about theatrical stuff in one form or another. So I just wonder if we can bridge the gap into theatre. Were you in bands at any point before started playing in theatres?
Only the sort of dance band my dad ran.
Okay.
But that was hard work. I mean, we were out every Friday, Saturday night, even from when I was 16 years old.
Cool.
In terms of musical theatre, there's a bit of a gap then, because I left that band at 18, I mean, almost on my 18th birthday, to go into the RAF.
Okay.
So I was in the Royal Air Force Central Band, which was for 4 years, and it was only after I left there and was needing to make a career that I started to get into theatre work.
Okay. What was the thing that made you think, oh, perhaps theatre is the way to go?
When I'd first left the Air Force, because military band music's great, and I had some fantastic times in there, and I've still got some great mates from that time, but it was never going to be my career. And when I left, you have to sort of go into just find a living.
Yeah.
As you know, self-employed. So one of the jobs I got was at a place called the Talk of London, which was a revue cabaret bar where it was all circular seating around a stage at the front, and then you'd have the cabaret, and I was in the sort of the house band there, and that was in the New London Theatre, but it was below the main theatre where Cats was playing.
Cool.
So I'd been on the QE2, which is a cruise ship. It's it doesn't exist anymore. It's a hotel somewhere, I think Dubai or somewhere now. But I'd been on the QE2, done the world cruise on there. My cabin mate was the sax player in the band. And when we got off the ship, we stayed in touch. And he was doing gigs with a guy called Dave Willits, who was quite well known at the time. And the bass player in that band was a guy called Doug Henning, who's unfortunately not with us anymore. Doug Henning was the bass player in Cats.
Okay.
So when I went to see Nigel playing with Dave Willits' band once or twice, I got talking to Doug, and it turns out, small world, he was upstairs and I was downstairs at the New London Theatre.
Yeah.
So when he needed a dep, it just so happened that he put a lot of deps in, because that show ran for a lot of years.
Yeah.
So he was looking for a lot of deps. And when he next wanted a dep, he said, well, come up, have a little look at the show. Because it's tough to play Cats. It's one of the harder shows, or was at the time. So I went up and had a look at it with Doug. We became really good friends, me and Doug. He gave me a copy of what we call the pad, which is like the bass score. And it's funny in Cats, because you were all just off stage behind a curtain, and all crammed in together. But the musicians were fantastic. Barry D'Souza on kit, and Maurice Cambridge on sax. A great band. Really, really wanted to have a go at it. And Doug said, well, give me a call when you're ready. And of course, you never feel you're ready.
Never ready.
One day he rang up and said,
ready?
You must be ready by now. And I said, oh, come on, let's just have a go. So I remember it was a Tuesday night, and I went in and did the dep, and it went really well. And that was my introduction into musical theatre, because not long after that, they were putting a tour of Cats out. And because I was having to do all Dougie's deps and they needed a bass player, I just got the call to do the tour. So I just went on a UK tour.
Oh, wow, okay.
Long story, isn't it?
Yeah, no, it's a great story. How does touring a show differ to doing it in one place? Like, are there additional things you need to worry about?
Well, the money's not as good.
The money's not as good?
The money's not as good.
Are you joking? How is it less money?
The wages aren't as good, although you do get a touring allowance, but it doesn't come anywhere near the cost of digs.
No.
So you're not in hotels or anything, you're having to find your own digs. So it's a lot harder work as a self-employed person. The shows I did were quite long runners. I think we did 3 months in Liverpool. What can I say? Because I missed the first section of the tour, which was in Bristol. It then broke, and then the full tour went out. And I did Liverpool and then Glasgow, I think Newcastle, and it was like 3 months in each. Same when I did the others, Greece and stuff. So you find digs that take you through that period of time, but it's a commitment. You're away for a long period of time. Yeah. You do get home at weekends. Well, you get one day. In those days, it was one day off, which was Sunday. So you'd fly back mostly on the Sunday and then go back on the Monday, which was no fun. So there's a lot of travelling, a lot of cost. It's a lot of commitment.
What happened after Cats? Presumably you got the itch for musicals. So what was the next show?
I don't know what it's like now. In those days, it was fixers, and you got in with fixer liked you, and you would do a good job, and you were committed to going on tour, and you turned up every day, and you weren't too drunk, and you weren't causing them issues. You know, all of those things, and you got on with the MD and whatever. Then it was safe. It was a safe bet for those fixers to use you. So you can't.
So fixers like an agent, I guess.
Just employs a band. They call them orchestral managers. Is there?
Okay, right.
So they would put the band together, take the contract off whoever the show production was. So for Paul Nicholas, David Ian at the time of Greece, I think it was Stephen Hill who was the orchestral manager. So he booked the band. So if you were known and trusted by him, it was hard to break into. It was hard to get into, but once you're in, it was hard to.
Once you're in, you're in.
You're in.
Lovely.
So when Cats was coming towards its close, I think the next one I did was. I think it was Joseph, but that was for a slightly different company. And then Greece. That's right, it was. And then it was Greece, where Stephen Hill rang me up again and said, look, Greece is going out. Long story short, just did that change. It was the same sort of thing. So it's back all over again to the same kind of theatres around the country, 3 months here, 3 months there. Eventually, Greece got scaled down and started doing 2 weeks here and 2 weeks there, but it was after a couple of years of touring. We did a couple of years of that.
You've done quite a lot of stuff within theatre, like, are there any particular highlights?
I'd been working on Greece in Manchester with Shane Ritchie, who'd played Kaniki in the West End and was going on tour as Danny.
Cool, okay. So he got a step up, he got a promotion as well. That's
absolutely.
Cool.
And he was also doing the Shane Ritchie Experience and Lucky Numbers at Granada, and they were opening a long run of Greece on its first ever UK tour in Manchester at the Opera House. So I said, yes, we'll do that. That's great. Have a bit of that. But Shane was incredibly good in terms of he loved his band. He loved the band. You know, he was really good and loved musical theatre, loved shows, and was sort of going and doing his TV in a day or whatever, and then doing the show at night. And at the time, he had a massive following. I mean, he used to open the stage door at the end of the show, and you just couldn't get out. We ended up not bothering in the end because it was not worth it. Not so much now, he's not, but he was then. Hi, Shane. And he became actually a really good friend for a long time. But the really highlight that you're talking about was when he left Greece he'd done an album which unfortunately didn't do that well, but to do the album, he'd introduced us all to a guy called Rick Taylor, who, along with Nigel Hitchcock and Paul Spong, formed a brass section, and these guys came in to do Shane's album while we were in Manchester doing Greece, or the first bit of it was done then. And this was like a new world to me. These guys were just, and still are, unfortunately Rick's not with us anymore, but Paul is, and I spoke to Paul recently, and they were doing things like The Who, Wham, Elton John.
Cool, okay.
Wet, Wet, Wet. You know, that was their gig. That was their world.
Wow.
And it was a world I was never part of, never have been. But, and I looked up to these guys, but Rick was a real character. And when Shane went to go on tour with Boogie Nights, put his own show on, he employed Rick as the MD. Rick took myself and the drummer and the guitarist out of the Grease band, so the rhythm section from the Grease band, to go and do Boogie Nights. That was the highlight, because we ended up doing, it was very rock and roll, but it was enormous fun. The show was enormous fun. And then I must have been halfway through it, we went to the States to do it for a little while, just for a really short time, I think a couple of weeks or something, because some American guy had come in and seen Boogie Nights in wherever it was playing and loved it, and he took the whole thing, lock, stock and barrel, to the States for a very short run.
Cool, okay.
Built the set, everything. It must have been a huge loss to him. But going to the States with Shane for those, I can't remember how long it was, but probably a couple of weeks or so, was probably the highlight because it was such a good laugh.
Cool,
And the people were so great.
You mentioned the album with Shane. Are there any experiences musically outside of theatre that you're really fond of, or were you just theatre pretty much through?
It was predominantly theatre. I mean, I did sessions and albums and bits and pieces, but they're quite hard work, and you don't keep track of what they are.
Right.
And I think before I got into all of that, I have to say one of the highlights was doing the world cruise on the QE2, because there was artists coming on who were really good, but they would come on with their own MDs, and it would be a case of, right, the rehearsals at this time, you go in the band room, they give you the charts, which they're used to their own bands doing. You have to sit there, read it. It's quite high pressure. You know, you sit there, you read it, they rehearse you go away, you do the 2 shows in the evening, because they used to have 2 dinner sittings. So the first dinner sitting saw the show while the others were in dinner, and then switched around.
Okay,
so you did 2 shows, and they had acts, but it was great. So on the World Cruise section of my time on there, they had like names that a lot of people probably won't even heard of today, but Neil Sedaka, Petula Clark, even like Paul Daniels, a magician, people like that. He used to come on, and it was like short, sharp, but it had to be good, it had to be right, and reading that music and doing that, working under that pressure was really good.
Cool.
But then after I'd done musical theatre, I got more into sort of doing, and my career was coming towards an end of that. I was getting more into doing writing and arranging for sort of bands and acts for a management company I was involved in. So that was good as well, because I used to like doing that.
Cool. You basically retire away from music to do family things. Can you remember roughly when that was?
2004.
2004. You remember exactly when it was. Do you remember the minute as well?
Not quite.
Not quite. The main reason we're talking today is because of a show we've been working on together. How immediately did you start writing the show?
At all. I mean, I was completely broken by the music industry at that point. It's like, I had a complete cut off.
Okay.
It was leave, stop. I just had enough of the industry, people in it. I just really, really had it. And I happened to meet my wife of 21 years now at the time, and decided that was my life. That's where I was going to go. I just didn't want anything to do with music. So I didn't actually do anything until, I don't know, probably at least a couple of years, probably 3, until I really thought, okay, and I didn't want to play again, but I'd always had this thing about writing. I just wanted to sort of, a bit of a hobby, test myself to see where I could go with it really. So it was a bit of a grab. I can't honestly remember, but it was quite a period of time.
Okay, so a good couple of years or so.
Yeah.
And what was it that made you want to do it? Did you just feel itchy? Were you just curious what it would be like to write for yourself rather than for someone else?
Yeah. I think technology was getting better. So I'd always, obviously you always want a studio. When iPads came out, it was like you had the ability to download these basic home studios. And I was like, wow, that sounds all right. And it was quite good. And it was like, well, I could actually write on this. So it was rather the thought of, I could write, rather than I want to write, how do I do it?
So it was kind of the availability of the technology made you go, let's have a play with this.
Yeah.
So you definitely didn't set about thinking, I know I'm going to write a 2-hour musical. No. How did we get from, this iPad's pretty cool, to I now have a 2-hour musical?
Yeah. I think I basically thought this is just a collection of music, songs, things. It doesn't mean anything. How can I make it all mean something? So you sort of think about, can I put it on library websites for people to buy, which were just coming out at that stage? And I just thought, well, you're just going to be competing with loads of people who are probably much better than I'll ever be. So I thought, well, I've probably got a track record and all sorts. So I thought, well, why don't I turn it into one piece of a musical? Because I've done musicals all my life. I might as well have a go at doing one myself. I've worked on so many. But you know what? I didn't do it with a purpose in mind, an end game. It was just, I will be happy if I can write something that's I like, for me, that works as a musical, for my own, just to satisfy that curiosity. Could I do it? Yes, I could. Put it away. That was done. Great.
Do you ever think back to Chris those few years ago and think, oh, you sweet summer child, you fool, what have you started?
Yes. Only every day or so.
Only every day. Okay, that's fine. As long as it's not every waking minute, that's great.
Well, every waking minute might come. No, I do. Yeah, sometimes. Yeah.
If
If you're enjoying this interview, you might want to visit the LT Guitarist Ko-fi page. Ko-fi, spelt Ko-fi, is a platform where people like you can buy a coffee for their favourite internet creators. Precious coffee. There's also a store where you can download basically every piece of music I've ever written, including lots of stuff that isn't up on Spotify or anywhere else. There's also a monthly supporter option where if you want to send me £1 every month, you can unlock a bunch of sample packs by me, which are not available anywhere else. It's super easy to set up and you can send payment through PayPal. Honestly, times are hard, so any donations are hugely appreciated. Visit kofi.com/LTGuitarist. That's ko-fi.com/LTGuitarist to support the LT Guitarist Interviews podcast. Thank you. So ultimately, you end up with a show about the Falklands. I mean, it sort of is, it sort of isn't, but between you and me, it's a show about the Falklands War. Why on earth would you write a musical about something so bleak?
When I'd got this first collection of songs and was looking, I thought, well, I'll tie them together. Obviously, I went through lots and lots of thoughts around, okay, well, but what can this be? Because I need, start writing the rest of the music, I then needed to have a plot in mind to write music to. So some of it was already written and some of it I was going to need to have a plot in mind. And I went through all sorts of ideas and wild and wacky, crazy, stupid ideas. But I had always recalled the book, the Tin Pot Foreign General and the Old Iron Woman, because it's a very short book, but it's actually very colourful at the start. And then it goes into quite a dark place. And the message is superb because it's not so much about the Falklands, it's about war per se. And it raises a lot of questions about war. And actually, I thought, you know what? The characters in this are brilliant. I'm really into the message. It's short enough. And I went through every page of the book and earmarked where I could make songs.
Cool.
And how I could link them. It was great, except I thought it's struggling with just putting that book to music didn't transfer easily from page to stage. So I then thought, how can I make it work? And that was when I started to develop the story from the point of view of one of the, two of the human soldiers involved, because war is fought by people. Even with technology today, there are still people who fight wars. And it was a bit of a light bulb moment, really. I thought, well, actually, that then works, because if you're using if somebody is trying to explain war and uses these amazing fictitious cartoon-like characters to describe how these leaders send people to war, it works. So then I had to expand it backwards again and say, okay, well, how do we get to that point? And I thought, well, actually, what if you're on an island and you're just sort of looking at this grave of somebody who's lost their life, and somebody sort of taps you on the shoulder and says, hey man, what are you doing? You have to explain it, and it's a child. And that's where I got it. I was like, that's it. That's where it is. That's where it should be. And then I was able to start putting the songs to it and write with a purpose to mood and to what was going on at the time.
Can you walk us through the plot of Sad Little Island?
Sad Little Island is about two human beings who are pitched against each other in a war. They're from different sides. One dies and one lives. The guy who has survived is on an island. There's a grave in front of him, which is the grave of this other soldier. And he's gone back to the island he fought on to visit this grave for closure, because he's one of these guys who's had quite a lot of trauma as a survivor. Years have gone by, he's got a family, he's got children, and one of the children who is there walks up to him and says, hey, what are you doing? What are you doing? Because he's talking to this grave, trying to make his apology. And hey, what are you doing? Who are you talking to? What's going on? And he has to explain to this child that he was once on this island as a soldier in a war, which this child is like bemused and says, well, what happened then, sort of thing, you know. So he has to explain to the child what war is and how this war came about. So how do you do that?
Yeah, the big questions.
He comes up with this notion of these characters which children would find colourful and interesting to explain the whole war. And you're suddenly cast into this world of colourful cartoon villains who are fighting over this island. The way it comes about, it uses the Tin Pot Foreign General and the Old Iron Woman, which is a book by Raymond Briggs. It uses the concept from that book to do it. So you've got this, you've got these two leaders. Effectively, one of them, I won't call it Argentina, but in some South American dictatorship somewhere, is in trouble, needs something to do to make him important at home, appease the people who are wanting to overthrow him, etc. And he is made of tin pots. He is this tin pot iron general, ruling over these real subjects. This tin pot general is advised by his closest aides that there is this little island not too far away, which would be quite an easy little win. And actually, it's ruled by a wicked old woman who lives miles and miles and miles away. He doesn't really care about it anyway. And it should be theirs because she's no right to have it. It's very close to them. They've always thought it should be theirs. And he thinks this is a great idea. So he conscripts all of these boys, puts them in boats and walks onto this island and bagsies it for himself. The old iron woman, far, far away, is furious about this and now decides this island is very well hers, and she decided it was hers first and wants it back. So she puts all her very real men into boats and sails them over to the island, and there is a battle for the island. It culminates in this one soldier having to fight another. One lives, one dies, and we're back where we were on the island. And this guy's saying, do you understand now? Do you understand how this all came about? And the kid's like, I understand, but why would you do that? Why would this be allowed to happen? And there you've got all the whys as to, all the whys. So, but at the end of the show, it's like, okay, I've got my closure, but you're right. It raises more questions than it answers. But today, this island is happy. It's at peace. There is a cause, but we need to not forget those who died. We need to not forget the war should be a last resort. And it leaves you the questions you've got to answer yourself as to what's my opinion on this.
I got involved through Amelia, your stepdaughter.
Yes.
So Amelia was quite active in Cambridgeshire amateur theatre.
Yes.
I met Amelia through my friend Ben, who was also involved in theatre. Yep. Am I right in saying that Amelia was getting into theatre and you were sort of unaware of that for a period of time, and it took a while to realise, oh, that's the thing I used to do?
I think it was more the other way around.
Okay.
I mean, I was fully aware of what she was doing, but I don't think she'd ever really... She did come to see something once, which was a Neil Diamond tribute, right at the very, very end of my music career when I first met her mum. But she was kind of like oblivious more to what I was doing.
Okay, right.
Kill me for saying that. She probably wasn't. I don't know. But I think it's more that way around. I mean, I was 100% into what she was doing. It was like she was so brave because she didn't know anybody really in musical theatre, and she'd just gone down this road. Very brave thing to do, and she was really good. And I'd always thought from hearing her really young, she's got a very, very good voice.
She's got a great voice.
Oh,
ridiculous.
Just a voice to die for.
I hate her so much.
And I always used to think, I wish I could just write for that voice. I just wanted to sing. But it's difficult when you're a dad, stepdaughter, people are growing up, you're working, it's complicated. It's not easy to sit down and have that idyllic sort of like, let's sit down and play and sing together. It's
a different relationship.
Yeah, so that was when she was very young. But as she got into the Cambridge musical theatre scene, we began to get much more tight around how musical theatre is, what my history in musical theatre. And I happened to say to her one day, well, I did write this musical once.
You're psychic, because that was my next question. What was that conversation like? Did you go away from that conversation thinking, right, Amelia's going to get me a team, we're going to do this thing?
I think for the first couple of times we talked about it, she was probably quite rightly pretty dismissive, thinking... Oh, yeah,
whatever, okay, sure, you've written a musical, fine, yeah.
Yeah, he's written a musical, right, yeah. And then it was much later, quite recently, I'd say within the last... It was probably, 4 or 5 years ago? I think she kind of must have just said, look, okay, what's it about? And we got talking and I played some bits, and she was a little bit like, actually, that's all right, actually, yeah, so tell me a bit more. And then she came round one day, and I do remember her sitting down with me. We went through pretty much the whole thing. And she was like, I know some people who might be interested to do this. This sounds like, I can see it in my head. I remember her saying that. I've got exactly the people who could do that. I can see the general, I can see the old, these people are, it was kind of fitted, sort of slotted into place, really. And she went away and mentioned it to them, came back, said they're really interested. And that's when you and I met, I think.
That's when we met. I wasn't at the front of her brain. I don't think we'd met just yet, but I think she'd probably thought, I reckon Ben could be a real great cartoon Galateri.
Yeah.
I think she probably also thought, I reckon Emma could be a really great cartoon.
She did.
evil
And one thing
Thatcher.
she's got a massive talent for is, while she goes about it quite quietly, she's actually very driven, very organised. If she gets something into her head she wants to do, she'll achieve it. And this was it for her. She was like, yeah, we can achieve this. I want this to work now. And once we were on board, and we've never looked back actually.
Yeah.
We've worked really closely on it very well.
Do you have favourite songs? Are there any songs from the show that you think this is particularly excellent?
God, Can't You Hear Me, I think, came from a really emotional place in me. It was written before it became part of the show.
Okay.
It has a lot of meaning for me. And I think in the meaning, it's one of those big meaning in the show songs. It's one of those that has so much meaning, and I do love it. Be My Heroes is probably one of my favourites. And one that we haven't done yet, which is in the full show, If They Can't Have You, They Don't Want No One Else. I think that's a great track. Apart, I think Apart has to be one of my favourites.
Yes, lovely. Yeah.
So the sort of the bigger parts of the show, they're all my favourites, really.
The cool thing about living in the future is that quite often, from a piece like this, individual songs can go off and take off kind of an identity of their own. We saw that with Let It Go in Frozen. Loads of kids were singing that song for 2 years solid, and some of them hadn't even seen the film. Like, it's totally possible that some of these songs can go off and be big in their own right, which I would also be fine with. You've kind of covered this already, but I'm going to get you to reiterate it because it's a nice way to sort of put a bow on this. What's the key message with Sad Little Island? If people are watching the show, let's say they walk away with one thought in their head, what would you like that to be?
Everything must start with why. Why do we go? Why do soldiers get no help? Why do we not learn lessons from these wars? Why are we still fighting?
We're still doing it.
Why do the leaders who send these people never fight these wars themselves? Why is that okay? Why do we want to commit to wars there is no possibility of changing anything by fighting? I want people to walk out, go into the restaurant they've booked and gone, oh my God, yeah, why? Why do we do that? Because I don't want anyone. I can see a time when I'm going to get asked really awkward questions about the politics behind the Falklands War.
I'm the comms guy. You can just hand over to me.
And you're going to have to answer.
I'm going to have to do it for you. I'm going to be in your earpiece.
And I'm going to have to say to people, I think you're talking to the wrong person. You think I haven't got a political agenda. This isn't about my opinion of the Falklands War or Raymond Briggs's opinion of the Falklands War. This is about, why do these things continue to happen today? You know, all these unanswered questions. So that is the moral of the story and the reason behind the show. And what I wanted to do is something that no other show does, which is get people to leave with all the questions unanswered.
Yeah.
But in a way that they've just seen a complete story.
Yeah.
So how did I see a story start with, and yet know the story's finished, but yet have so many unanswered questions? That's kind of where the whole thing is, really.
And that's kind of the experience for veterans as well. They've gone through this whole thing, but it doesn't end when you ship back home.
And in fact, that's where the problems start.
Yeah.
Because even if you survive, you don't survive. There are no survivors of war. You know, having spoken to these guys, you know, that's clear. There are no survivors. So why? Again, why? Why are they left to feel that way? Why do we not help them more? Why is there not more aid for guys who have given pretty much everything?
Yeah.
Who will never be the same again, you know? And it happened throughout Iraq, it happened throughout Kosovo, it happened through, you know, wherever UN troops have been, wherever troops go, you know, through Afghanistan, you know, and these guys are giving everything.
Yeah.
Literally, they're losing their minds, and yet they come home to cope. And you know, sometimes wars have to happen.
Sure. Yeah.
You know, had we have not fought the Nazis, we would have just laid as sacrificial lambs to Nazism. You know, and that had to happen.
Yeah.
Can't we learn lessons from that to make sure that right-wing extremism doesn't any longer try and take over the world? You know, and if we're going to do that, can we do it without fighting? Can we do it in a better way?
How do we avoid being in a position where war becomes inevitable?
Yeah. That's that. There you go. That's what
comms guy. Yeah,
comms guy. Comms guy's got it.
It's not an uplifting way to end an interview, but I think it is poignant to end there.
Okay.
Thank you so much for your time, Chris. I'm really looking forward to finishing this project.
A sad little interview.
Maybe you should be the comms guy.
It's been an absolute pleasure. More soul-searching than I thought it might be.
Yeah, sorry about that.
It's all right.